we go. Hi, and welcome everyone to today's Grow session. Grow is an initiative of Talmid of Hebrew College, which gives participants the opportunity to gather, reflect, observe, and wrestle with topics relevant to our lives today through a Jewish lens. Hebrew College is part of a vibrant hub for Jewish communal leadership and learning, and we have wonderful campus partners, and this year we are leaning into these relationships. Today, we're excited to welcome Elisha Gechter, the immediate past president of Mayyim Hayyim, who will offer today's session, Giving Shape and Intentionality to Rituals. For those who don't know, Mayyim Hayyim is a mikveh rooted in ancient tradition, reinvented to serve the Jewish community of today. It's a resource for learning, spiritual discovery, and creativity where women, men, and people of all genders and ages can celebrate milestones like weddings and B'nai Mitzvah, where conversion to Judaism is accorded the honor and dignity it deserves, where survivors of trauma, illness, or loss find solace, and where those who immerse monthly can explore the ritual on their own terms. Mayyim Hayyim provides 1,600 immersions and over 110 educational programs every year. They also offer art exhibits, national consultation services, and meaningful volunteer opportunities and training. It's an amazing community resource, and we're so glad that Elisha is here today to share her knowledge. I'd like to share a little bit about Elisha ahead of her presentation. So Elisha has been working in the Boston Jewish community for 18 years. She moved here to attend grad school at Brandeis and got a professional start at CJP fundraising with local young leaders, and then came over to Hebrew College as the Associate Director of Adult Learning and Community Engagement, where she founded the ESSER program in 2011 and has been teaching in the Community Learning Program ever since. Elisha is about to transition from a decade of work at the Harvard Kennedy School, where she led the Wexner Israel Fellowship, to Harvard Hillel to work with alumni to improve the student experience on campus. This June, Elisha will be ordained from Yeshivat Maharat in New York. She serves on the board of Mayyim Hayyim, where she previously was the president, and she lives in Somerville with her husband and kids, who are also big fans of Mayyim Hayyim. And so I'm going to turn it over to Elisha, and Elisha is going to cue me on when I need to share something.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Kim. Thank you for having me. Thank you for that intro. It's so nice to be together with this wonderful size group, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion and to learning. I'll say I love learning. I love teaching, but more so just being in a community of learners. And the other thing that I really love is creating ritual with people, very much in partnership. It's one of the things that drove me to rabbinical school. And I'm excited to have this class, but also a full series that's coming up starting at the end of the month around just sharing some of the ways that I've been able to do that, to partner with people, to create ceremonies that build deep connection for them with themselves, with something bigger, with other people, with tradition. So I'm glad to have this small little chunk of time this morning to talk a little bit about some of that. And the question that I really want us all to play with and hold for the next hour or so is, how can we get better at creating rituals that are good fits in our lives? There are a lot of ready-made rituals in some ways that we can step into. Those also call us in to adapt them a little bit so that they're right for us. And we're also just ritual beings, and we are always invited to create ones that are rituals that are meaningful and good for us. So I want to just start by defining a ritual, and then I want to look at a text together and unpack it. And then I want to look at a Mayyim Hayyim ceremony. And after I define the ritual, actually, before we get into texts, I want to hear a little bit from everybody on the screen about a ritual, a meaningful ritual that you may have recently experienced. And I'll give you some more framework on how to answer that exactly. But here's the definition of ritual that I would love for us to work with today. And I'm going to define it super simply as an action that is imbued with meaning and intention. Okay, so ritual as an action that we imbue with some kind of meaning and intention. So with that in mind, I would love to go around, and I'll call people's names because your names are on the screen, easy to say. But if you could share with us just in like one breath, what was a ritual that you recently were at that felt empowering and meaningful? And you don't have to tell us why. You're going to tell us the what. What was the ritual that you were at recently? It could be a private one, it could be a larger communal shared one. And I'm going to just call on people. And if you're not ready to answer, you can pass. So Suri, as one of our early joiners, would you answer that? And just notice also, I didn't say a Jewish ritual. I just said a ritual. So you can define it as broadly as you want.
Yeah, so my first thought was my grandson's birthday. Turned, I guess, 9 years old. And we grandparents come and we all give one appreciation, what we appreciate about our grandson. And then he shares one thing he's proud of himself. And then we have the cake and the eating, which is also appreciated.
Okay, love it. Birthday gathering action. Imbue it with the meaning of what are you proud of? What are you wishing? Beautiful. Katie, you want to go next?
Sure. Every single Sunday I go and do yoga with the same class at the same studio, and that's just one of my weekend rituals. And it feels, no matter what, if I'm feeling tired in the morning, I end up coming out of it feeling really good. And it's just been I've been doing this for almost 2 years now, and it's just a really nice part of my week.
Yeah, amazing. Yoga, body movement, in community with other people every Sunday, a mainstay in your rhythm of your week. Naomi, you want to go next?
Sure. I meet on Zoom once a week with my 2 grandchildren, and we are reading. They are 10 and 7, and we are reading kind of middle grade novels, stories together. Most of the 2 we read so far are kind of a combination of history and science technology, the STEM, which is interesting because I'm the one non-scientist in the family. So who knew that I would be the one doing this with the kids?
I love it.
Yeah, but it's just wonderful. They're homeschooling, and just to hear them talk about, the come up with ideas for where both from a literature perspective of where the story's going, and also the science, and the books are written in such a way that you get to figure it out as you go along. It's just a wonderful ritual we have every week, and I just love it.
Thank you, Naomi. You're the first one who gave us a good example of a virtual ritual. You don't have to be in person per se with people to do a ritual when our relationships are scattered all around. You have this rhythm of gathering and reading with your grandchildren on Zoom. Beautiful. Susan, I see your hand up, and I'd love for you to answer next. If you meant to have your hand up.
Sorry, I had the technology challenge. Thanks for doing this. So this is a little bit of a long story, not too long. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I had retired after a very, 40 years of working, and I was looking forward to like amazing retirement with my husband, doing all the things we wanted to do. Kids were going off to college. And then the world kind of caved in. My parents were in their 90s, so, a blessing that I had them for so long. But my dad got sick, I had to take care of him, and he passed away. And then COVID hit, and then my mom shortly thereafter got sick and passed away. And then my husband got extraordinarily ill and really looked bad. And then miracles of miracles, he got a kidney transplant almost 2 years ago from my best friend, and is doing fantastic. So those 5 years were terrible for me. I didn't take care of myself. I put on a lot of weight. I was in very bad shape. And I decided that it was time, when he got better, to kind of now start taking care of myself. So I joined, one of these weight loss programs, Weight Watchers, and I went every week to go. And it was my ritual. Every Saturday I went. Now, I didn't do that well the whole time. It was very up and down. Sometimes I lost, sometimes I gained. But I said to myself, as long as I keep going, eventually something good is going to happen. And I met a whole bunch of wonderful people, all in the same situation as I, and like a great therapy session every Saturday. And it's been 3 years. And this morning, my birthday's Saturday, and I said by my birthday I had this goal. But literally this morning, 70 pounds off, but it took 3 years to do it. And if you average that out, it's like a half a pound a week. But you know what? I just perseverance and ritual and going and going and going, even when things were better or things were worse, I just kept going. And eventually, something got better. And I had this amazing group of supporters now as well. So the timing was great for this goal.
I'm glad your birthday is bringing you that kind of milestone achievement. And you gave us another example of a weekly ritual, right? We had a birthday ritual, which is a once a year. We might have some one-off rituals too, but we have several examples of every week doing the same thing. And what's really interesting, Susan, when you're mentioning the ups and the downs, the same ritual can meet us again and again, and we meet it differently. And we imbue it with different meaning based on what's happening for us and in our lives, in our heads, in our spirit. So thank you for bringing us that example. Sure. Deborah, can I ask you to share next, or Deb? That's you. Yeah, but gotta unmute. You're just on mute now, so we'd love to hear you if you can unmute.
Yes, I have a ritual. Thank you. And my ritual is every morning. I walk my 3 big dogs with my girlfriend, who has another 3 big dogs. And we walk in the woods. We don't have to walk with leashes, and we climb and hike. We get to a top of a mountain and we look at the city. I'm very blessed. We feel so grateful every day to be able to do this. And we're both not young anymore, but able to climb a mountain. And it's a ritual that we want to keep going on and keep doing.
You get to for many healthy years. I love that you gave us a daily ritual, and I also just really latched onto your visual of these 2 women and 6 dogs making it up the hill. That's amazing. So thank you for that example. I want to call, we have, it seems like maybe 2 more attendees and then a few Hebrew College folks that it would be so nice to hear from as well. Your attendees too. Mirta, would you like to unmute and share one with us?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Yes, my ritual is to go once a week to the seaside and paint. I really enjoy painting, so I like to be at the seaside and kind of be in a completely different environment.
Wow, that sounds so peaceful and creative and generative, and that's really, I appreciate that you brought that as an example.
Thank you.
Here. The other Susan, would you like to share?
Sure. I'm just going to bring up actually a Jewish ritual, and I'll tell you why it was relevant for me. So a good friend of mine, her mom passed away recently. And so about a week and a half ago, I was at her place for a small group for Shiva. And we had minyan. And it was really important for her. And she got a chance to share a lot. We were a small group, so she talked a lot about her mom and all that sort of thing, which the reason it resonates for me is because I have 2 grown kids who are recently married. One married a Jewish person, one married a non-Jewish person, and the one who married a non-Jewish person, they're expecting a baby. Wow, and I have no idea what they're thinking. I think they tend to be less on the religious scale, which I'm not that big on the religious scale, but I have an stronger identity. But what was meaningful to me is that I always feel like one of the things Judaism does best is handle death, because we know what to do, and I think, being able to share with the community is really important. So that was what I was thinking about.
Yeah, thank you, Susan. You brought us to this space of what happens when we're really at a loss and what rituals come into play to help us sit in that void, not fill the void, but just to sit in it and to be with that loss and to be with other people. And one of the reasons I'm also having us go around, not only to meet the room, is that other people are often the source of ideas for rituals for us. And we don't have to be the ones to create all of it. We can certainly take what we hear from other people and adapt it for ourselves in ways that make sense. So I'm listening to Susan, that example, but other examples in that light as well. Rosa, would you like to go next?
Yeah, my example is also about death. Actually, I've always thought that Judaism handles death beautifully. However, my family is not religious, so once we do Shiva, there's no one says Kaddish. It's just kind of, and then no one really talks about the person ever again. It's just, I don't know if it's too painful or what, but it's like once you're dead, you are gone. And I don't love that. I certainly hope people will talk about me and remember me in some way after I'm gone. Poo, poo, poo. So actually, I have some cousins who move. I live in Jamaica Plain. I have 2 cousins who've moved to Jamaica Plain recently. My mother comes out every week. And I said to her last week, why don't we invite the cousins one night when you're here and I'll have dinner? And I said, oh, next week is grandma's yard site. Why don't we do a special dinner? And like, that's tonight. So I was at this, like, I dropped off the kids at school. I went to the grocery store. I got all the, like, my grandmother was from Santa Fe. I got all this like Mexican food we're going to have for dinner. My aunt's going to zoom in from Santa Fe. We're going to like, my sister, we're going to remember grandma. I'm
I
so
love
excited.
Rose is bringing us a fresh in the baking ritual that she's creating for her family, and this really beautiful serendipitous coming together. Your mom happens to be coming, your cousins are in town, and you thought, like, how can we honor grandma? Because it's something that's on your heart and not something that you're seeing other people around you do. And you took the opportunity to invite other people in. And I hope it's such a beautiful way to remember her. And I do, like, food has come up a little bit in what we're saying, but food is such a strong part of ritual for people. And so I like that you chose the menu specifically for honoring your grandmother's experience. Kim or Laura or Robin, would you also like to chime in? And then also Paula, welcome. And we'd love to hear from you. We're just saying a meaningful ritual that we are recently part of.
I'll go. So just in this theme, my dad passed away 2 weeks ago today. And when we were doing Kriya, the ceremonial ripping of the ribbon, my dad loved Peeps, those awful marshmallow things. And so I had brought 30 Peeps with us, and because it was so hard to lose him, we after we did that, before we went into the funeral itself, our family, everyone ate a Peep in his honor, in his memory. And that felt like putting a little sweetness into this very hard piece of saying goodbye. And I think it sort of lightened everyone's load just a little bit, even though no one actually likes Peeps in our family except my dad. But I don't know, maybe that'll be something that we do going forward as we remember him.
Yeah, that could be a sweet touch point to circle back to. And thank you, Kim, for telling us about what's really raw and recent for you. And we're all sending you our wishes for your healing together with your family. And I like that idea of, like, sometimes these milestones can feel very heavy, and ritual can sometimes feel very significant. And giving yourself a little permission to play and to bring in humor at times can be so freeing and can let a little bit of release happen before you're ready for the really heavy pieces, I find. Laura or Robin, would you like to share?
I've been thinking about it as everyone's gone around the room. One of the things I've been working on right now is every year we do a different Haggadah. We write it, and it's usually a lot of the same stuff, but we add and change, and depending on who's here. And this year we're going to have like 10 little kids under 10. That's a lot of them. So trying to figure out how to make it more fun to get the kids. So it's something that we do every year, my husband and I, and so that's what we're working on right now. So that's the ritual I'm thinking of.
Right. That's a great goal. How fun can you make your Passover Seder, especially when there are little people involved, but not only. Thank you, Laura. Robin?
I'm going to pass today. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thank you for that go around. That was very fun to hear. And I was thinking, as many of you were talking about the birthday or the 1-year anniversary of different pieces, that these are moments that I have come to Mayyim Hayyim because I find it to be a place that is so good at ritual. The biggest piece for ritual is that you need to be able to slow down and take a little bit of a step off the regular track of life and be thoughtful and be present. And that is what I get every single time I go to Mayyim Hayyim, is that I just get to step out of my regular flow, get really present, and then I have the space to be intentional and be a creator of meaning and imbue my action with those 2 pieces to, like, really be in the definition of ritual. And I mentioned I wanted to look at a ceremony of theirs in a little bit, but first I want to look at a text. And Kim, this is a good time to bring it up. that gets at this idea of being present, of slowing down from regular life, which can be such an enormous challenge to us these days with phones, with packed schedules of work and of home life. It all feels like urgent and something you need to attend to immediately, and yourself and other people. And it just can feel like a tsunami on a regular basis. So ritual can help us with that, but only if we push a little bit of a pause button. So I wanted to bring you a text from someone named the Wexner Rebbe, who was a 19th century Hasidic rabbi in Poland. A lot of really, really beautiful teachings. And this is a little bit of a summary. This isn't like the primary source, but he's teaching in this instance about a verse from the book of Exodus, Sefer Shemot, where we have the telling of Mount Sinai, of Moses going up to Mount Sinai, getting the 10 Commandments, learning with God, and preparing to go back down and teach what he has learned to the people. And the Wexner Rebbe wants to teach us something important here. So I'm going to read what's on the screen and mention that this is basically a summary from his words in his book called Iturei Torah. Okay, so I'm going to read it in Hebrew and then I'm going to translate. This one line is from the Torah text. Vayomer Adonai al Moshe, Ale Elai Hahara, v'haya sham, ve'etzna lecha et luchot ha'even, v'hatorah, v'hamitzvah, asher katavti lahorotam. God said to Moses, come up to me on the mountain and be there, and I will give you the stone tablets with the teachings and commandments which I have inscribed to instruct them. The Wexner Rebbe goes on and says, on the surface, this verse is difficult. If Moshe goes up the mountain, he certainly will be there. Why does the verse have to emphasize and be there? Many, many Jewish commentators are highly attuned to extraneous words in any of our texts, and they want to extrapolate what is the meaning here. So I'm going to continue on in the text. Wexner Rebbe says, from here we learn that even if one exerts oneself to climb to great heights, picturing the 6 dogs and the 2 women, you could nevertheless not be there. You could have this amazing experience and not be there. You could be standing at the top of the mountain, but Moses' head could be elsewhere. The Wexner Rebbe then said that the main thing is not to climb to the top, but the ability to be fully present when you reach the top. So I have a few questions that I want to ask you guys about this text. You can leave it up for a little bit, Kim, while we discuss, just so that we can have the text to refer back to. But I also want to tell you that the way that I learned this text was my best friend's father came up to me at my wedding as I was getting, why it's making me emotional, but it was getting ready to walk down the aisle. And he was like a second parent to me. I spent so much time in my best friend's house growing up, and he's a rabbi. And he told me this little piece of Torah. He quoted the line from the Torah to me, and he said, this is what the Wexner Rebbe teaches. And he's like, the most important thing you can do today is just be present. And he said, if you can, before you walk down the aisle, just pause for a minute, take a deep breath, look around at all the people who came to support your love, and be as present as possible, and see if you can hold on to that for the rest of the night. And it really made such an impression on me. He said the same exact thing to my husband before he walked down the aisle. So we both got this same piece of Torah. And that was 18 years ago almost. And it's something I still love to remember for myself, and I love to share with other people as well. And so I want to open it up to general noticings you might have. But my 2 particular questions are, like, if Moses struggled to be present with God at Mount Sinai, this epic event, like, is there any hope for us being present in big and small moments in our lives when you think about that? And I'm also offering an opportunity to say, like, if there was a moment that you felt you were able to really do this, to really be present, and something in particular helps, you're welcome to share that. I want to start us off, and maybe Kim, now you can stop sharing for a bit so we can just see each other a little more. Thank you. No right answer here. And also, if you want to just talk about something that struck you from what we just read, that's also okay. You can go off script a little. Yeah, Rosala.
I just love to just go off script a little and just say that I was just so struck when you said that like Moses struggled to connect with God. If Moses can struggle, that's something I love also about being Jewish. I feel that our ancestors are rarely portrayed as perfect, and they struggle with relationships with humans and themselves and even God. So like, how do I expect myself to be perfect at all these things if even like Moses, I really appreciated hearing that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is good to have models of leadership who are just real people who have same struggles that we do. Yeah. Susan.
So I love that piece of Torah. Thank you for sharing that with us. It's really meaningful to me. Somebody else mentioned, maybe Katie, about doing yoga, and I also practice yoga. So that does help me a lot to be present. It helps me in the time that I'm doing it, but it also helps me after for at least a little while. But breathing. So breathing is a tool that I use to kind of be present and slow down. And I find that really helpful. But I will say, I think the idea of being present and being able to focus on what's happening in the moment is a real struggle. It's not an easy thing to do. And when it works, it's really powerful.
Yeah. Thank you, Susan. Susan, other Susan.
Hi. So yeah, the whole being present thing with all of our screens is obviously very, very challenging. I find it very challenging. And I'm not typically a Shabbat observer, but one of the things that one of my non-Jewish best friends said to me a few months ago, she said, I love the fact that on Shabbat, you have to turn all those screens off and just be present in your day. And she said that she was taking on that ritual for herself, not to, she's not Jewish, but just the turning off of the screen every Saturday. And she felt that it had just enriched her life so much that I said, if she's doing this, like, how am I taking this up? So I have started to do some of that and just turn it off for a while. And the difference in your life when you're going for a walk or in wherever you are doing whatever you're doing and not to be distracted by the phone or whatever, or the other screen is remarkable. And it brings me back to when we were kids, and at least in my generation, we didn't have phones and we didn't have all that stuff, and we were present. And when we went away to college, we met people and we dealt with where we were because we weren't constantly on the phone with the friends that were across the country at other schools trying to figure out what they were doing,
That's
So
right.
I think it's really great to just that whole be present it's more than words. It really, really is so meaningful.
Yeah, and there are things that you can do to like safeguard your attention and your presence, and taking away screens from time to time is one of those things that you can give as a gift to yourself. And we are Shabbos observant in my house, and we turn off screens, and my kids really don't love it. And they always talk about, when I'm an adult and I get to make decisions for myself, that's not what I'm going to decide to do. And I'm like, you should decide what you want. But just so you know, your family is giving you a gift at this moment, because this is something that people really struggle with. And so the fact that someone else is imposing on you to just take a break for 24 hours, I actually play a game with myself of how long after Shabbat can I keep my phone off for? Like, and I often like to just not turn it back on till like Sunday morning, maybe late Saturday night. Suri, I'd love to hear from you. Thank you, Susan.
I try to set intention and have a prep period for something I really want to be present.
Yeah.
And I think the Jewish tradition supports it in so many ways, from just at least saying a bracha before something makes you pause and have that. And I've tried to collect something called kavanot, which are actually written intentions before you do something. But whether I'm going to go swimming and jump in the pool or whatever, I often close my eyes and pause and remind myself to enjoy it. It's just a way of interrupting the flow, like was said before.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Suri. And I think like in the pasuk that we read, the intention, the written intention is that phrase, be there. right? And like, we can have our breath, we can have these intentions, kavanot, we have intentions, we can have like little mantras of things that we say to ourselves. Thank you, Sari. Katie. Oh, you're muted, friend. Oh, we want to hear you.
Sorry. I think what resonates with me about this is, well, I kind of thought that when he says be there, he means to like stay there, because Moses is up there for kind of a while. And I think the whole thing is like Moses has a lot of people relying on him, but he has to take this time for himself and this, relationship with God or whatever it is. And I think it's kind of interesting that everyone here on this call is a woman, which is noticeable for this ritual call. But I feel like, a lot of people feel like they have to say yes to everything and don't take time for themselves or like get away. It's hard to be in the presence, in the present when you're constantly doing things or for other people or whatever. So that's kind of, I'm not very articulate right now. It's been a really rough week in higher ed, but yeah.
It has been a rough week. I think that was very articulate anyway, despite that challenge of that headspace. And yeah, I love that read of the pasuk of like, you're going to stay here. You're not going to run back down to the people right now. Your only job is to be here in this moment. We're going to spend some time together. You're going to spend some time for yourself, away, doing something different. Thank you for that Torah, Katie. Deb, what did you want to add?
Well, I think I'm on.
You're good. We hear you.
I'm good. Okay. I think to be present for me is to really listen. With it, I'm not saying present with myself. I'm also saying present with a close friend or a person you don't even know, and they're asking you something, to be present, to respond and to listen.
Yeah. Listening cannot happen when we're multitasking.
Right.
A lot of things can happen when we're multitasking. We certainly cannot listen when we are multitasking. And that idea of like presence equals listening, that's like often the root of connection, is being able to listen to someone else, being able to listen to ourselves, our intuition, our inner thoughts, our inner dialogue, maybe not our inner grocery lists. And that's the point Katie was making. But yeah, the presence equals listening is a beautiful piece that you're bringing us. Susan, you have your hand up again. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
That comment just resonated, something just popped in my head. I just share. I worked a lot of hours, and so I made a point. We did family vacations. I have 2 children, family vacations, but I also made a point to take each child on a separate vacation for a couple of days when they were young, to really just, family vacations are nice, but there's a lot of chaos. So, you want that one-on-one time. So one of the things that we did when the kids were younger was my husband and I would split. He'd take one, I would take the other. Couple of days, didn't have to be a big trip. It could be a hotel in the city, just whatever it was, just to take the time. And I remember one of the first trips I took with my daughter, I think she was 7 or 8 years old, maybe. We were taking the train to Pennsylvania or something. And she was reading a book or whatever. And I pulled out at that time my BlackBerry, and I had Blackberries. And I saw it because I was always connected to the office. And I saw it, and she turned to me, 7 years old, and said, "Mom, put that away." And I realized at that moment that I had always been, even when I was with them, I was always also in the office, and I was always on it. And that thing was such a response from her about my not being present, even though I was physically present, that it really, really got to me. And I said, and I did put it away, and I didn't take it out for the rest of the time that we were together until she went to sleep. But just saying being present for somebody else is really, really important. And it means you give them your attention. So it really just resonated with me what the last speaker said. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I love that example. I love that practice you have of taking your kids on their own vacations with you. Also, it's great to be open to feedback for ourselves. Like, what are the times we correct ourselves? We're like, oh, whoops, we got off track. How do I bring my monkey mind back to the present? And also to be open to when other people say it, and also think about how we might want to gently remind some of the people in our lives sometimes of like, hey, are you with me or are you somewhere else? Like,
exactly.
do you want to return? Kim, you want to add something?
Yeah, I do. I've been thinking a lot about Susan's comment about these sort of cluster of really hard things where it's easy to get kind of lost in the things that are hard. And one of the things, I have a kind of a long commute to come into Hebrew college, and before this, I also had a long commute. But really, when times are hard, to spend time just sort of listing all of the things of which I want to be present for or that I'm noticing that are going right. And sometimes it's really small, like, and I do this at the dinner table a lot, and my kids know, like, well, what was good today, right? Like, even in the midst of really hard stuff, to notice that there are things that are good. And if we only are so immersed in the hard, it helps, it really steals something from you. So like this text of Moses being present, I'm sure he was thinking about a lot of things, right? Like the people had just left and there was a lot of chaos and all those things. But to be in that mindset of, I'm going to be fully present, I'm going to notice what's happening around me, feels really important.
Yeah, it does. And all, when we're talking about getting present, you're so right. We could get present to a lot of different things. We can get present to things that are hard. We can get present to things that are good. We can get present to gratitude. And we do have control over what we pay attention to. And we don't always feel that unless we're like slowing down and reminding ourselves of that. So thank you for bringing that. Naomi.
This is bringing up a lot of things, but I think the thing that's most sort of forward in my mind is that sometimes we have to remind ourselves when we are present and other things are not getting done, that that's okay, that life, the laundry will still be there after we've read the story to the children or whatever it is. The value and of that present is important for that moment, and the rest can wait. There's very little that can't wait.
Yeah, very little that can't wait. We often have these strong messages in society about productivity, and presence doesn't get elevated in the same category. It's a different P word. And we can say, I'm going to put a pause on productivity. I'm going to like really invest in presence at the moment. I really appreciate that you said that. But there was one other thing I wanted to say about Kim's comment, which we were talking about screens before as like a distraction and from just being present. I find also sometimes people in a moment where they're so excited, they feel something amazing is happening. We like reach for our phones to capture the moment, right? Like I can picture Moses being like, oh my God, it's amazing up here. I want to take a picture for like the Israelites down there. Wow, they would get a kick out of this. And then it takes you out of the moment a little bit. I think we do it because we want to preserve a moment for ourselves in the future. I notice this so much at my kids' school performances. Like all the parents are on recording on a device. And I'm always like, I don't want to see the performance through my phone. I just want to be present. I just want to see it with my eyes. I'll find some other way to recapture it and remember it in the future. I'll write a story about it. I'll rely on other people's pictures. But like, where can we also just make sure that we're focusing not for how am I going to remember this in the future? How am I going to tell the story about this? But like, how do I just be here for the sake of this moment fully in this moment? So I appreciate everybody's comments. I want to spend the last chunk of our time together looking at an example of a Mayyim Hayyim ritual that was written. So I said, Mayyim Hayyim is great at bringing people into this beautiful space. If you ever have a chance to visit on the campus of Hebrew College, it's a special, special place. It used to be a home, was turned into an education and a mikvah center. People can go to immerse, people can go to learn, people can go to celebrate. When you're there, you do slow down. And then you have space to do whatever you would like in your immersion or your celebration or your learning, but you are also given some beautiful suggestions. We have over 75, I would say 50 to 75 ritual ceremonies that have been written for many of the different moments that we've already mentioned in this conversation, from loss and healing to birthdays, celebrations, to daily ritual to, I don't know anyone who goes to mikvah daily, but there are certainly people who go regularly, monthly, or around the holidays. So I wanted to share one, and Kim, this could be a good time to bring this up, that was written by our team of ritual writers at Mayyim Hayyim. it changes actually from resource to resource, but a group of 3 amazing women wrote a whole bunch of them together, a rabbi, a poet, and I think a Jewish leader. This one is in preparation for Passover. I know it's Purim this week, but in just a few more weeks after that, it's going to be Passover. And there are people who have the tradition of coming to immerse before Jewish holidays, because there's a lot of things that we can do to get ready for the holiday. We can invite our guests. We can make our grocery lists. We can think about our clothes and where we'll go for services or where we'll go to be in community, where the people we want to be including, where do we want to be included? But then to also kind of get spiritually ready is something that a lot of people will go to mikvah for, and in particular to Mayyim Hayyim because of its inclusiveness. So I want to take you through this immersion kind of step by step, just to give you a real picture of what's going on. And then I want to open it up for like what strikes you, and where do you feel like this ritual meets the moment, and what might you adjust or shift if you were coming in to do this ritual for yourself. So just a show of hands, actually I can't hear, I can see everybody if I go like this. How many people have been to Mayyim Hayyim ever? Okay, we've got a few folks, which is great. Okay, so you can picture walking into a living room of a sun-filled home. That is where you would be received when you come into Mayyim Hayyim. You'd be shown to a preparation room if you were coming in to immerse. And you would be given some beautiful intentions to help you prepare your body to go into the mikvah water, into the ritual water. And during that preparation time, there's like this step-by-step process that is full of intention. And when you finish preparing, you could now say this intention that was specifically designed for this pre-Passover readiness. And I'll read this piece to you, and it draws on the themes of the holiday. So you would stand probably at the edge of the water and say, or in your preparation room and say, just as the Israelites stood at the shores of the Red Sea, I prepared to immerse in the mikvah as part of my own journey toward freedom. Okay, so we're mimicking what happened historically and making it very personal. Then you would be in the room either on your own or with a guide. In both scenarios, your privacy would be like highly, what's the word I'm looking for? Respected, maintained, upheld. And once you get into the water, you would get to say some extra text. And this isn't meant to be prescriptive. Like you could get in the water and say whatever it is you like. But if these words spoke to you and you had a chance to look this over ahead of time, a lot of people request these when they come in for their immersions. This is part of what you could say. So before you even duck in, you've just walked down the 7 steps. Your body is fully immersed in the water. Your head is still above water. And you might say this next line. And this first immersion is a nod to what it took to leave Egypt. I acknowledge the narrow places in my life, the ones I have come through and those yet ahead of me. And then there are instructions to descend into the steps of the water, take a breath, immerse completely. So every part of you is covered. When you come up from that very first immersion, you make a blessing that's traditional blessing for immersion. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'tefillah b'mayim chayim. God who has commanded us to immerse in the living waters. It's traditional to immerse 3 times, to like dunk under the water 3 times, but all the more is totally welcome. This ceremony happens to be designed with 4 dunks, but people might choose 7 or even just 1. I'll take a pause here and say, like, this is audience participation now. Why do you think 4 would have been the choice for a pre-Passover immersion? I see some knowing nods. Suri, you want to share with us your thought?
4 is a magic number associated with Passover, from the 4 cups of wine, the 4 children, like that.
Exactly. So I want to say, when we create rituals for ourselves, numbers are a really interesting thing to play with. It's an interesting lever in the ritual world. You could say, how many times do I want to say a blessing? How many, people do I want to call on my walk? You could just think about anything that might have a number around it of how many times you're going to repeat something in a ritual or incorporate elements into. You could be really thoughtful about your choice because numbers do correspond to things in life, in Judaism, in your family. 7 is another big number in Judaism. There are 7 steps into the mikvah. They represent the 7 days of the week. 7 blessings are said under the chuppah for a lot of different reasons. 7 is a number I really like to play with in ritual, thinking about those 7 blessings and 7 days of the week. Where else is it meaningful to bring 7 pieces in to something? Okay, so this is the text with a nod to hope that you could offer before immersing for the second time. Our ancestor Nachshon, character in the Bible, showed courage by stepping into the waters yet unparted. I too claimed courage in the unknown and immerse a second time for hope. The instructions then are take a deep breath, or the guidance, take a deep breath, exhale while getting ready for your second immersion. Okay, then you would come out. Springtime renewal is what the third immersion's intention kavanah is about. And you could read this if you wanted to before your third dunk, as we say. As the buds unfurl in spring, I honor the renewal and the new growth within me. And then you could just relax and let your body go underwater for a third time. And this fourth immersion, a personal reflection, the text is rooted in my people's history. I emerge from these living waters, ready to take my place in our continuing quest for freedom. Can I think there might be, is that the very end of that page? Yes, we have reached the bottom, and there's the names of the people who wrote it together. Kim, I'll say, Mommy, stop share. And would you mind putting the link in the chat? So for people who want to go back and still look at that, but I'm curious to hear like what resonated for you. What might you have really wanted to include in a ritual like this for yourself? What might you have wanted to skip? What might you want to add in? And where do you feel like this ritual met the moment of pre-Passover? I didn't say afterwards. Then you can have more time in the water after you're finished with this part of the ritual. You'd eventually exit. Get yourself ready to finish your time at the mikvah. Some people journal before or after they go in. A lot of people write in our guest book and say how the ritual was imbued with meaning and intention for them on their way out, which is always a lovely thing to read and to also write in. So that's the fullness of the experience. I'm really curious to hear people's reactions to it. Especially as you hold on to that question that we started off the session with of how we can get better at creating rituals that are a good fit in our lives. And this is one model of a ritual that might or may not be a good fit in your life.
Just a quick comment. I liked how it had an arc to it. You know, so it went like from the narrow places to having more hope to thinking about renewal, and then maybe a reflection to plan a future vision for yourself or something like that.
Yeah. Thank you for pointing that out, Sari. There is a very thoughtful, intentional flow from the start to the finish, and feelings you might have at the beginning, the feelings you might have at the end. Katie?
I really liked the words. I thought it was beautifully written. And also as we're coming out of just the harsh winter, it was just, I kind of like the idea of doing some sort of ritual to just celebrate that. One thing that I was thinking about as somebody who I'm converting, so I haven't gotten to my mikvah yet. I'm very excited about that eventually happening, but I was thinking like, how could this maybe be done in a different way that does not involve the actual bath?
Yeah, I love that question that you're holding. Some people do ritual hand washing and say the same exact text. Some people go to a natural body of water, which is where some people like to go to mikvah anyway, but you could certainly, it's a little cold at the moment for that. So maybe hand washing is better, but anything that would feel like a ritual, an action moment that goes along with the words, because the words are imbuing the action. So that's a great question. What's the stand-in action if it's not going to be mikvah at this moment? What else is on people's minds from reading this together?
I'll jump in. I appreciated the, thematically, right? So taking the big themes of Passover around being kind of stuck in narrow places, about hope and courage, and to be able to put that in my own life. So I feel like this ritual is both connecting me to the past, to tradition, and also helping me see relevance for where I am in this moment.
Beautiful. Thank you. I'll add that if you browse other rituals on Mayyim Hayyim's website, and there are many that are public, and there are some that are listed but not hyperlinked, and you can always email Mayyim Hayyim staff and ask them to see the full ritual. I do find that there's like enough white space on these pages. By the way, these are all laminated in real life, so you can take them with you into the water, which I deeply appreciate the practicality of that. But there's enough white space on this page where you can still insert your own thing, even if you wanted to say everything that is there, and you certainly don't have to say everything that's there. And two really beautiful experiences that I've had of bringing friends to the mikvah or bringing family members to the mikvah and seeing people really put themselves into the middle of these rituals. I brought a friend who was 9 months pregnant. There's a beautiful ritual for getting ready to welcome a child. There's also a lot of rituals around infertility and different struggles with that process, which is very much a part of life too. But the 9-month immersion ceremony is one that was really personally meaningful to me, and one that I extend invitations to friends to do every once in a while. I had a friend who was Israeli, and she really wanted to go, but she really didn't want to go alone to mikvah. So I offered to accompany her. And I told her that there's opportunity to say whatever you want to say when you're in the mikvah. And she wrote a note to her future child. It was her second child. She hadn't done anything like this with her first. She wrote it in Hebrew. She put it on very special paper, very particular paper, put it in a particular box, asked me to hold on to that box while she was in the water. And then at a certain point asked me to hand it to her. And she just read this note so sweetly in like her own voice in the water, and it resonated in the room, and was such a privilege for me to hear these wishes that she holds for herself, for her family, for this next stage of their journey. And her words felt equally part of the ceremony. And one other voice I'll bring in is my 12-year-old daughter, the frequent mikvah goer, which makes me so happy because I did not know about mikvah as a ritual that was open to me when I was her age. And before she went to sleepaway camp for the first time, she said, I'd really like to go to Mayyim Hayyim because I feel like it will help me feel emotionally ready to go to camp and be away from home for a month. And I said, great, let's do it. And the Mayyim Hayyim mikvah guides are just very thoughtful, well-educated, attuned people. And in addition to the text that they gave her for like a momentous life occasion coming up, they also gave her paper and markers and said, any art you want to make about this before or after you're in the water, that can be part of your ritual too. So she colored a bunch of striations, like big bold stripes on a white piece of paper when she got out of the mikvah. She had said some of the ceremony, but mostly just did her own thing. She got out of the mikvah. She decided to squeeze her hair onto these colorful stripes and made this art that to her was mikvah art. And she took it to camp with her and hung it up by her bunk, by her bed. And for me, that was such a beautiful way for her to have her own expression and make her own mark as part of the ritual. I had never thought of art as part of this particular ritual. And she really infused herself in it, which I think is like a perfect example of how you have one ritual and you can really add to it and make it your own. So I want to leave another like minute for any other comments that people have about this ceremony or about the ideas that we're talking about today, making ritual really huge to our lives.
I'm just grateful to this session because I rarely think about ritual in my life. Life is just so frantic. I'm so impressed with the rituals people have here, and I'm just very grateful for the opportunity to think about them. So thank you all, and thank you, Elisha.
Pleasure.
Well,
It's really nice
I'm
to
going to echo that. Thank you so much, Elisha, for guiding us through a really meaningful session. And anyone who's interested in exploring this a little further, Elisha is going to be offering a course, just 4 sessions. But I see how packed this one was with so much meaning in just an hour. It's called How to Craft Creative Jewish Rituals, and it begins on March 25th. Goes from 7 to 8:30. It's a hybrid class, so you can either come to Hebrew College or you can take it online. And the information is both in the chat, and it also will be sent along with the recording for in the follow-up for today's session. And we hope that you'll join us next month as we learn with another campus partner, the Jewish Women's Archive CEO, Judith Rosenbaum. And that's going to be on April 16th. And I hope that many of you will join us also for our celebration of Tamid Adult Learning, which is on April 9th. So all of this will be in the email. But thank you so much for spending this hour with us in hopefully what was a meaningful way.
Thank you. And also thank you for the comments in the chat. I'm glad we all got to spend some time together.
And happy Purim, everybody.
Yeah, happy
Hi,
Purim.
Purim.
Before we get to Pesach.
Indeed.
Thank you so much.